All right, Nick, let's talk about the Clemson Tigers. This is a team that, maybe a little bit of a disappointing end to last season. There was quarterback flip flop. They didn't know where they're going. But this is a team I think is getting heavily, heavily slept on. There's a lot of potential here. And I really think the Clemson Tigers have a huge opportunity this coming season.
You're right, Miles. I agree with you 100%. You've got an interesting story outlining exactly why they have a huge opportunity, why they're being slept on. But before we get into that, Tigers fans, we want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. This team added a lot of key pieces in the offseason, whether it's a recruit, whether it's a transfer, maybe it's a new coach. Let us know what new addition to this Clemson Tiger football program you think will have the biggest impact come 2023 and beyond. And make sure you do it in the comment section below. All right, Miles, what you got? What's the latest out of Clemson?
Yeah, Nick, the new offensive coordinator from TCU looks like a pretty big signing for
Huge.
Clemson as well. Maybe this gets Cade Klubnik kicked up into gear and he goes into overdrive. They, have a pretty big season this year. Because, Nick, I see the college football playoff odds come out. And we're going to take a look at this here for just a second. And we look at these national title odds here. You see Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan. Pretty reasonable takes there for odds of guys that are going to win it. Then you see Southern Cal, also a very strong team. But right there, Nick, is Clemson. And I think people forget Clemson has made themselves a powerhouse over the last 10 years or so. They've been around the college football playoff a lot, and there's a lot of talent on the coaching staff. There's a lot of talent in the program in general. And I think Clemson is really being slept on. People that don't even have that in the back of their head. I think this is a really powerful team. They got a lot of great recruits, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They're kind of reloading a lot of huge 5-star recruit on the D line, a lot of really strong 4-star recruits as well for the defensive line and secondary. I think Clemson really is primed to potentially make a big run here. What do you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that Clemson's being slept on because it's one of those things where one of the biggest answer that everyone has to come up with at the in college football, major college football, is how good are you going to be at quarterback, right? Ohio State, we don't know if C.J. Stroud's going to the NFL. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, we really don't know how good he truly is in the biggest moments. He's not the best. Obviously, Alabama, Bryce Young, Georgia, Stetson Bennett, right? There's a lot of volatility when you look at the top guys in that list and those odds at the quarterback position. Clemson has none of that. They have their guy. It's Klubnik. Right. And they paired him with Garrett Riley, who you mentioned earlier, is a young, dynamic, outstanding play caller who basically carried Sonny Dykes' TCU program, a quarterback, of course, by Max Duggan, all the way to the national title game. I think he could have potentially similar impact with his Clemson offense right away. And you brought up recruiting, Mice. It's one of those things with Clemson that's so interesting about them under Dabo Swinney the last decade or so. They have never been number one or number two in terms of 24/7 sports. I'm using their rankings where they finish each season, each recruiting season. But mine's they've always been staggered between number 3 and number 21. They'll be 7th one year, 3rd the next year, 12th the next year, 9th the next year, 11th the next year, 15th the next year, just always in that range, right? They never have a bad recruiting year. They're really good year in and year out. They're really consistent year in and year out. And when you do that, you build quality depth. You're allowed to develop and grow your players. You build some good camaraderie, a good solid locker room. And then once you get quarterback figured out, which I think they have here in Klubnik, I think the future is so bright. I look at a Clemson team right now, Miles. I don't know if they lose a game this season, right? I think they're that good of a football team all the way up to the college football playoff. I think they're going to be dominant. I think this is a return almost to the Trevor Lawrence era of Clemson from just a few years ago.
Yeah, Nick, and they do it by dominating like the Smoky Mountain corridor we talked about. It's very important. They got 11 guys from Georgia this year. They got 4 guys from Alabama, 3 more guys from South Carolina. There's a lot of really strong Southeastern recruits that Clemson is kind of targeting in these recruiting classes, and I think that's going to pay off for them big time. But that's it. Clemson has proved that they can consistently win national championships. It wasn't just a one and done thing. They were a powerhouse with Deshaun Watson. They're a powerhouse with Trevor Lawrence. And I do agree with you. I think they're going to be a powerhouse with Cade Klubnik. I think he's the guy. And I think this new offensive coordinator pairing is going to be just what they need to push them over the edge and get back to the college football playoff. Because when they get there, if they can rebuild the defenses that they've had in the past, they have tons and tons of high-end NFL talent on defense. I think they can dominate some of these teams, and they're going to be much more formidable than a Michigan, than a TCU.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even they're going to give the Ohio States a run for their money. So I think Clemson really has a good shot to win it all if they can get into the college football playoff.